Hi everyone, how are you all doing? I hope you've all had a great week, and I especially hope that those of you who are doing A-levels and got your results got the results that they wanted and have been able to get into the universities that you wanted to get into. So, what are some different ways of communicating that you can think of? I'll give you a couple of seconds to either think of them yourself or discuss with the people with you. I'm guessing that you thought of things like talking, writing, maybe drawing, texting. Maybe you even thought of sign language or body language. But did any of you think of symbols and symbolism? I don't mean things like emojis, although they're definitely symbols, and some of them do have more than one meaning. I'm talking about the kind of symbolism that is the bane of anyone who's been in an English lesson in the last 20 years. The curtains were blue. Why were they blue? Were they blue because blue signifies sadness and depression? Were they blue because one of the characters is a fan of blue and therefore has blue curtains? Or are they blue because the author picked blue as a random colour for curtains in that scene? We use symbols and symbolism all the time. If you've ever been in a blast session, you'll know that there's a particular song that plays when we want to gather everyone together. The song has a meaning beyond itself, and everyone there knows what that meaning is. And it's pretty evident to any new people pretty quickly what that song means. Within church services, we have symbols and symbolism as well. The most notable being communion, where we remember through the symbols of the bread and wine, Jesus' death and resurrection. But what about statues? What's the symbolism of a statue? What message does a statue convey? We don't have any statues in our church, as far as I can remember, but several churches do, including the Minster. And if you've been keeping up with the news lately, you'll know that statues and the debate about what they're for and why they exist has been pretty hotly debated in newsrooms and on political stages around the world. Without getting into the debate of why any individual statue exists and whether or not it should stay standing, it's pretty clear that statues are meant to commemorate and celebrate a person, a thing, or an event, and that the people are meant to remember and show respect to whatever the statue is representing. That is certainly what Nebuchadnezzar had in mind when he built his 27-metre tall statue on the plain of Dura. That's about half the height of Nelson's column in Trafalgar Square, if you're struggling to visualise it. In fact, Nebuchadnezzar took it one step further. He didn't just want people to show respect and remember, he wanted people to worship that statue. Worship it as a symbol of loyalty to Babylon and to himself. This is the crunch point. This is the point when the exiled Jews have a choice to make. James mentioned a couple of weeks ago that the Babylonian strategy was to gather the talented, the strong, the noble captives to Babylon and then assimilate them into Babylonian culture. And one of the key ways of doing that is to assimilate them into the state religion, which in Babylon was their form of paganism. As much as people these days try and separate religion and state, at least in Europe and America, there is and always has been a really strong link between the two. If you want to control a group of people, where the control and fear of the state fails, the unity of a shared religion will succeed. So, for Shadrach, Meshach and Abednego, this is their public test. They and Daniel have already refused to eat the food from the king's table, but that was a private matter. That didn't affect anyone else. It didn't outwardly affect their loyalty to Nebuchadnezzar and to Babylon. This test, everyone's going to see. And this test has a penalty of death if you fail. Think a minute about the symbolism. The statue represents the might of Babylon, the power of Nebuchadnezzar, and the sovereignty of the Babylonian gods. Those who are bowing to that statue are saying that any national identity, any religious identity, any personal identity that they had before they were captured by the Babylonians is gone. They are now saying that they are completely loyal to Babylon, its gods, its king, and everything it stands for. This is who they are, and this is what they worship now. This is a moment of complete victory for the Babylonians and for Nebuchadnezzar himself. Except 3 men don't bow down. 3 men out of thousands refuse to comply. Not because they're smart or clever, or because they're ungrateful for the gifts and the food and the training that the Babylonians have given them, although that's what the Babylonian scribes say to Nebuchadnezzar. They refuse because God told them to. I don't know if this is where the phrase "stand up and be counted" came from, but a dictionary definition of that phrase may as well have a picture of Shadrach, Meshach and Abednego standing when no one else would as its definition. They refused to reply, not because they were being smart, but because God told them to. It says in Deuteronomy 5 verses 7 to 9a, you've probably seen these verses before. It says, "I am the Lord your God, who brought you out of Egypt, out of the land of slavery. You shall have no other gods before me. You shall not make for yourself an image in the form of anything in heaven above, or on the earth beneath, or in the waters below. You shall not bow down and worship them." In many ways, the challenges of the new normal that Daniel and his friends found themselves in has built. The meal debate, the lunchbox debate as James put it, was a challenge in trusting God for the day-to-day as they adjusted to their new normal. For us, that may have been a commitment to continue to do our daily prayers or go to church on a Sunday, even though there's changing routines and everything looks different. The interpretation of the dream was trusting God when nobody knew what was going on. No one had the answers and the situation was bleak. How many times have we collectively felt exactly like that over the last few months? But this, here, for Shadrach, Meshach and Abednego, is trusting and following God when everyone else was telling them not to. I don't know what your moment for this is going to be in our new normal. It might be a deeply personal moment in your personal situation. It might be that we have to make a stand of faith against a government, council, job or other organisation where we say, no, publicly, our loyalty and trust in God is greater than our loyalty and trust to you. It might be that there's a literal statue or other symbol that you encounter in your life where you have to say, what this stands for cannot be allowed to stand unopposed any longer. It could be the refusal to take a new job or promotion because the requirements of the role or organisation call you to be loyal to it over God. It may be that you have to say no to a club or your friends because what they're asking you to do and when they're asking you to do it will interfere with what God is calling you to do. Shadrach, Meshach and Abednego made their stand of faith, their stand of trust and their stand of obedience to God, knowing that the consequences would be death. They didn't do it because they expected God to miraculously save them. They did it because they were loyal to him and because they trusted him with the outcome. They said to Nebuchadnezzar, "If we are thrown into the blazing furnace, the God we serve is able to deliver us, and he will deliver us from your majesty's hand. But even if he does not deliver us, we want you to know, your majesty, that we will not serve your gods and worship the image of gold that you have set up." That's a really difficult thing to do. It reminds me a bit of Puddleglum in The Silver Chair, when he's being told that the underground world is the only world that really exists. Here, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego are being told that this new world is the only one that matters. And he goes, no, I believe in the world you said I've made up. I believe in Aslan. And I'm willing to go with that, even if I do not get rescued out of the fiery furnace that's coming. I wonder how many martyrs have uttered those words or similar words down the centuries. How many others with jobs, family relationships, homes, or other similar things on the line have echoed Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego's sentiments there? Our call as Christians in this new normal, where everything looks different, everything feels off, is still the same. It hasn't changed. We are still called to pick up our cross and follow Jesus, to stand up and be counted like Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego did, to say to those in power that we will not let their actions go unchallenged when they abuse their power or ask us to choose between loyalty to them and loyalty to God. And the thing to remember as well, if you've already faced that moment, or if you feel that you're about to, is that they did face the consequences. They were thrown into the blazing furnace, the furnace that had been made 7 times hotter than was customary. They still suffered the consequences, but God was with them and he kept them safe in the consequences. He didn't keep them out of the furnace, but he kept them safe in the furnace. When we follow God, there is a commitment from him to keep us safe. Now, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, as you probably know, survived this encounter. An angel was in the furnace with them and kept them safe. Not every martyr has, but through Jesus' death and resurrection, Jesus was willing to go through death in obedience to God. And through his resurrection, we know that whatever the outcome, like Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, whatever the outcome of our following God over everything else, he will keep us safe into eternal life, whether or not we're alive at the end of it. We will be alive through Jesus. We will be alive for eternity because we followed God.
So now we come to our time to choose. There will be 4 different options on the screen, one of which will take you to the end of the service through the prayers and the final song. So now it's your time to choose.